Okay, so it's the end of an era for the Line 6 DL4. This is now, of course, obsolete and the Mark 1. If you'll indulge me, I don't have a DL4 Mark 2, but I've read the manual and I just wanted to talk to you about what are the ways that this is new and different. So, first thing to say is that the new Line 6 DL4 Mark II has MIDI. That's really important. It also has a microphone input. I guess that's important for various things. You could even use that with guitars with an XLR output and stuff like that. The other really cool thing is that there's an SD card, so you can have longer loops, but you can also save your last loop between power cycles, so that's kind of cool. Only one loop, so it's not like a thing like you could have lots of loops stored over time. It's just your very last session. If you look at the cheat sheets and stuff, we've also got some reverbs in there. So not only do you have the old models, so we have all of these familiar models from the old one, we also have the new models. My favourites from the Helix world include like the glitch and crisscross delay, but we also have a reverb engine in there, which is really cool. So you can see here you've got glitch, you've got hall, you've got hot springs, you've got chamber, you've got Ganymede, you've got plate, you've got cave, you've got room, searchlights, particle verb, double tank, octo tile, ducking, plateau. So that's a nice feature. I think it's really cool for me, I think, to have that option, especially if you were using this to sort of complement something like your HX Stomp. It's nice to be able to actually offload now both delay and reverb to an outboard kind of pedal instead of something like the Strymon Timeline, which you might use for this, or Big Sky. You can actually handle both of these things in the one unit. You've also got two loopers there, so you've got a one switch looper which would work like a ditto, and you've got the classic four switch looper which would be the same as this, so you know, the classic that we know and love. And it can also be mono or stereo and position post or pre the delay and reverb. Another really cool feature about the looper now is you can jump out of looper mode and change preset and the loop continues, and then you can jump back into looper mode. So that's kind of useful, I think, a bit more up to date. The tech specs are as follows, but importantly the headline for me is that you can power this now with 9 volt 500 milliamp, which is really nice to be able to do that. The previous one had its own special power supply or batteries, which is fun. You've got 6 presets available, but you've also got the option to load 128 via MIDI. It's true bypass and switchable or buffered and DSP bypass. Smaller and lighter, I think, than the original. So yeah, this SD card thing is fairly, I guess, new to me, this idea. You can load in an SD card 4 gigabytes or upwards, and you can then have, you know, sort of unlimited looping time, and it will save your last loop onto that SD card, so that the next time you turn on your DL4 Mark II, you will be able to pull up your last loop that you created with it, which I think is a nice feature. Compared to a dedicated looper though, I don't think that's necessarily going to solve any problems for people that are sort of doing dedicated looping, because of course with those you can save multiple loops. With the DL4 Mark II it will still just be that one loop, so the use of that over time, if you're using this thing as a performer, I guess could be fairly limited. I guess that would be fair to say. Let me know in the comments if you've got ways that you would use that specific feature. Also got USB connectivity, you know, so you can run, I guess, an editor with it, I'm going to assume, and also control it via MIDI software from your PC if you want to do that. As I said, you can configure your delay and reverb routing, so you could have reverb before delay, reverb after delay, which would be my preference, or you could have them in parallel if you wanted to do that. You can adjust this by pressing the Alt button and then turning tweeze. Save that per preset. Here you can see in the factory presets how they've got things set up. I think by default there's a reverb model on each of the presets, but it's set to 0, and if you hold Alt Legacy and turn the mix knob, you can blend in some reverb, which I think is a really nice little feature. Not necessarily one that would be obvious, but one that I think would be totally useful, and turns it from just a delay pedal into something that I think has a bit more utility. So yeah, I think a lot of cool new features to do with the Line 6 DL4. I think they have sort of brought it a bit more up to date. I can't think of too many delay pedals that can do this sort of stuff. It's a little bit more advanced than I might have expected. To have the reverb built in as well and have multiple reverb options I think is really cool. And to have this looper which is expandable via SD card I think is really nice as well. So I'll be interested to try one when I finally can get my hands on one. I have seen one in person when I was doing the Catalyst and Revstar recording, but I didn't have time on that day to actually do anything with one. Let me know in the comments, will you be upgrading from your DL4, or is this something that you can sit out on? For me, I have these tones in the HX effects or in the HX Stomp, but I do feel like there is some difference to having it in this kind of unit as well. I feel like each unit, is, if they're well thought out, does have a different workflow, and potentially, you know, the idea of having a looper here with your delay pedal where you've got those switches free, as well as having your HX Stomp, you know, doing your normal stuff, you'd have more DSP on your HX Stomp freed up because you'd be using delay and reverb on here. That could also free up the HX Stomp. The other really cool thing would be that you could have trails because you've got your DL4 taking care of the reverb and delay, and then the HX Stomp you could do your amps and stuff like that. So you could maintain trails now with an HX Stomp and a DL4 or an HX Effects equally, but I do think in terms of user interfaces is very much a different thing to an HX Effects. Let me know in the comments, as I say, and yeah, DL4. Out with the old, in with the new, or something.